Ruth chapter 2. Ruth is 8th book of the Bible, so just after Judges. Come to a small book of Ruth. We talked about the context of when Ruth was living, the time of the Judges. That was a time of violence and a time of every man doing that which was right in his own eyes. So a time of great evil happening in Israel. This cycle of the Israelites rebelling against God, and so then God brings judgment upon them by bringing another nation, and that nation subjugates them, and then in that subjugation they get into the slavery, and after a certain amount of time in slavery they suffer enough that they finally turn away from their sin and call to God and say, "Oh God, save us." And then God will send a judge, a leader, to come and rescue them, and then they would be okay for a little bit while that judge was alive, and then after the judge died, everything went back in that cycle. And so as that cycle went through, each time the cycle went through, it seemed to get worse and worse as well. And so Ruth and Naomi and the account that's here occurred during this time period. And so when we look at Ruth, when we look at Naomi, who we saw, they stand out in their character. After you've read through the book of Judges, you understand what's happening in the book of Judges, you have Ruth and Naomi, and they are just amazing examples of faith in a time period where there isn't. And we saw Naomi's faith put on display really when she makes this statement as she comes back into Bethlehem, having returned from Moab. And she says, "Do not call me Naomi, but call me Mara, for the Almighty has dealt very bitterly with me. I went out full, but Yahweh has caused me to return empty. Why do you call me Naomi? Yahweh has entered against me, and the Almighty has brought calamity against me." And she recognizes that whatever has happened, and there's been a lot that's happened, Yahweh is Yahweh God who has the ultimate say in what happens. She doesn't complain against him. She just makes a statement of, this is what it is. I am in great sorrow. I have lost lots. So don't call me Naomi, which meant pleasant. Instead, call me Mara, which means bitter. For I have been dealt bitterly. It doesn't mean that she's bitter. She's saying the Lord's dealt bitterly with me. And so we have her faith in the midst of sorrow. Ruth's had sorrows also. Her husband died. She's been left without any hopes as a young lady. And she goes with Naomi, and her faith is seen as she is told by Naomi, "No, you stay here, go back to your mother, go back to your mother's home. You get a husband in your own community here. Don't come with me. There's nothing for you with me." And Ruth says, "Do not press me to forsake you and turn me back from following you. For where you go, I'll go. Where you lodge, I will lodge. Your people will be my people, and your God will be my God." And she makes the covenant with Naomi that she will never part from Naomi unto death. And in that, she has rejected the gods of Moab. And she's rejected the rebellious culture of Moab. And some of that tells us that Naomi has, as that household has come from Bethlehem into Moab, they didn't leave their worship of Yahweh back there in Israel. They took it with them and taught both Orpah and Ruth about this God that they serve. For Ruth knew who she was choosing. And so that's where we land, where we get to this last part of chapter 1, where it says, "So Naomi returned back to Bethlehem, and with her Ruth the Moabitess, her daughter-in-law, who returned from the fields of Moab. Now they came to Bethlehem at the beginning of barley harvest." And this is the setting where we're at now. They have made the trek back. We have that scene of Naomi talking to some of the women of the town, and the writer of Ruth leaves it for us to know it is now the time of barley harvest in Bethlehem. That's important. That's setting the scene for us. What's going on. And what we're going to see as we look at chapter 2, and I don't know if we'll make it all the way through, but as we look at chapter 2, what we're seeing is that there's glimmers of hope that now are starting to come out. This sorrow and the bitterness of chapter 1 that has just laced everything through it, there's some hope that's there. How are these two ladies going to survive? Well, there's a provision of God that's there. Just as God's hand was upon Naomi and her family to bring her to where she was, God's hand is still on them. And so, as we pick up in chapter 2, this is the scene that we have. And I'll ask you to please stand in honor to God and His Word as I'm going to read all the way through chapter 2, but I'm going to read a portion of it and we'll stop. Look through it. So I'm going to read the first 13 verses. Now Naomi had a kinsman of her husband, a mighty man of excellence, of the family of Elimelech, whose name was Boaz. And Ruth the Moabitess said to Naomi, "Please let me go to the field and glean among the ears of grain after one, whom I may find favor in his eyes." And Naomi said to her, "Go, my daughter." So Ruth went. She came and gleaned in the field after the reapers. And it so happened that she happened to come to the portion of the field belonging to Boaz, who was of the family of Elimelech. Now behold, Boaz came from Bethlehem and said to the reapers, "May Yahweh be with you." And said to him, "May Yahweh bless you." Then Boaz said to his young man who was in charge of the reapers, "Whose young woman is this?" The young man in charge of the reapers replied, "She is the young Moabite woman who returned with Naomi from the fields of Moab." And she said, "Please let me glean and gather after the reapers among the sheaves." Thus she came and has remained from the morning until now. She's been sitting in the house for a little while. Then Boaz said to Ruth, "Have you not heard, my daughter? Do not go to glean in another field. Furthermore, do not go on from this one, but stay here with my young women. Let your eyes be on the field which they reap, and go after them. Indeed, I have commanded the young men not to touch you. If you are thirsty, go to the water jars and drink from what the young men draw." Then she fell on her face, bowed to the ground, and said to him, "Why have I found favor in your sight, that you should take notice of me, though I am a foreigner?" Boaz replied to her, "All that you have done for your mother-in-law after the death of your husband has been fully told to me, and how you forsook your father and your mother in the land of your birth and came to a people that you did not previously know. May Yahweh fully repay your work, and may your wages be full from Yahweh, the God of Israel, under whose wings you have come to seek refuge." Then she said, "May I find favor in your eyes, my Lord, for you have comforted me, and indeed have spoken to the heart of your servant woman, though I am not like one of your servant women." Lord, as we look through this text, we are amazed at your kindness and grace seen in just the common aspects of life. How in the little details of life you are working and providing and caring for these here. It reminds us of how you are with us. How there's not one detail that is out of your hand or control. How you are faithful and true to your promise that all things work together for good for those who love you and are called to your purpose. You've never broken that promise. And so we rest in knowing that you are a gracious and kind Father who does bring sorrows and difficulties, as Naomi tells us, but does not forget his own. We may tarry for a night, but joy comes in the morning. So thank you, Lord. I pray that you would teach us by your Spirit, that you would humble us before your word, encourage us in faith, strengthen us in persevering, and fill us with joy this week, knowing that your hand is upon us. So thank you in Jesus' name. So we have this scene, and we now have the entrance in this scene of a new character. We know of Naomi, we know of Ruth. There are others who have fallen off the scene, right? There's Elimelech and Matley and the children who have died. There's Orpah who went back to her home. We have the crowd of women who are just a crowd, not really named out or anything like that. But now we get another main character. How do we know it's a main character? We have a name that helps us. We do a little foreshadowing with it also. Because it says, Naomi had a kinsman of her husband. So now we're going to find out somebody who's related to her husband Elimelech. A mighty man of excellence of the family of Elimelech, whose name was Boaz. And that description of him is important. We're given key clues about who this man is before we even get to meet him, to frame so we know, if you're doing a melodrama, he's the guy in the white hat. I don't know if any of you have seen modern melodramas. I love melodramas. It's not even fashion. Doesn't do right. Yeah. So, anyways. But that's the reality, is that this man is the good man par excellence. And so we know, first of all, that he is related to Elimelech, and therefore related to children of Mahlon, and through marriage related to Ruth and Naomi. We know his name is Boaz. That description there of him being a mighty man of excellence, or he might have a worthy man or a great man. There's all sorts of ways that it gets translated. That word is used a lot of different ways. Some of it could be like a great commander of an army. The word could be used for a wealthy citizen in a city, somebody who sits at the gate and is a leader of the city, a town, an elder of the city, or somebody of great character. I lean toward this being about his character because this term is used again of Ruth, chapter 3. Now, I gave you that cross-reference of chapter 3, verse 11. You'll see that same term used. And so that tells me that it's not talking about how Boaz was a strong military commander, because that's not what Ruth was. Right? The point of Ruth is that she had a great reputation. And Boaz says that everybody knows you're an excellent woman. And so the writer uses that same term for Boaz, and Boaz is this man of excellence, this truly worthy man, this upstanding man of integrity, this man that everyone else looks up to. And so that begins our context. Is we have a foreshadowing, we have the hero entering. And then we get the scene back with Ruth and Naomi. So having given us a setting, then we go back to talking about Ruth and Naomi. And so Ruth goes to Naomi and says, please let me go to the field and glean among the ears of grain after one when I find favor in his eyes. And what we see is that they are now in this strange land, and Ruth's instinct is to provide for Naomi, to care for her, as the younger one. She could, as the foreigner, be like, I'm new here, I don't know what I'm doing, don't know anything, I'm just going to kind of get the lay of the land. But she loves Naomi and she cares for her, so she is doing that which is going to be best for Naomi. By offering to go to the fields, she doesn't know any of the fields. Like Naomi does, right? She knows different people, but Ruth doesn't know. She's getting up early in the morning. She's going to start going through the fields to find where they'll let her go and glean. And the reality is that as a young lady, especially an unattached young woman, she is particularly vulnerable to being taken advantage of. And so there's a real danger in her doing this. But she wants to make sure she takes care of Naomi. And so she's offering whatever the cost is. I need to go glean. And that may or may not go well with me. And Ruth is not innocent of this, because the same thing would have been true in Moab. There were people in Moab, there were ones that you could trust and ones you couldn't. And without knowing, you would know which, like if you lived there, you would know, yeah, that person, well, maybe you trust the owner, but the guys who work for him are they'll hire anybody. Whereas this other person, they make sure that the people who work for them are good people to work with. They get reputations just like any business does. But Ruth doesn't know those things. So as she goes, she is going out and really taking a chance on it. So we need to see that part of it, is that there's a drive in her to care for Naomi and a willingness to put herself in danger for them. And Naomi understands the danger is there, because the response that's there is, notice how she talks to her. Go, my daughter. She's fully owned her as, this is my daughter. We saw that before in chapter 1, and you have this heart of just thankful love at this point. And so in verse 3, we have this interesting way this is said. So Ruth goes and she comes and gleans in the field after the reapers. So she goes and finds a field and starts gleaning after them. But notice what it says there. Some of the versions just say, have it very lightly, but it's a repetitive thing in the Hebrew. And so it happened that she happened. It was just a chance of a chance. Just by luck of the draw and by chance, she ended up here. Where did she end up? Just so happened she was lucked out by happening to come to the portion of the field belonging to Boaz, who was of the family of Elimelech. And so we have this repetition. I want to make sure you know which Boaz I'm talking about. I'm talking about the one I said, the writer's telling you. I'm talking about the one I told you about earlier. That Boaz that was related to Elimelech, not some other Boaz. And what do we know about him? He's an excellent man. And it just happened that she ended up on that one. And that's one of the things that's happening here, is that, once again, the fingerprints of God are all over this book. And all over the lives of Ruth and Naomi. And all over the lives of Elimelech and Matley and Chilion and Orpah. His hands are all over all of it. So with that, then, we get the introduction of, now, who is this Boaz? We got a general introduction before. But let's find out about Boaz. And so, verse 4 gives us a picture. He enters the scene. Now behold, Boaz came from Bethlehem and said to the reapers, may Yahweh be with you. They said to him, may Yahweh bless you. Wouldn't you like to work for somebody like that? He comes into the office and he blesses those that are working with him. Not just a simple, hey, how's your day going? No, it's, I want God's blessing upon you today. And it is not an uncommon thing for them. They're not like, okay. They're instead, they're ready with a response. With, may God bless you also. Can you imagine such a work environment? It's interesting, we I actually know somebody who ran their business like that. They read the book of Ruth, and he owned an insurance business. And he's like, I'm not running my business right. He hired Christians, so they were all Christians in the office. But it's like, I'm not running my business as a Christian. And so he made it his thing was, I'm going to be a man who blesses my workers, both in word when I come in, they're going to hear that blessing, and then I'm going to make sure that I'm a blessing to them as a leader. And in doing that, his workers return that blessing back to him. That gives you an idea of what type of work environment this is. This is not like the rest of Judges. This is not like where everyone else is at. This is a unique place. In this whole land of Israel that is in rebellion, you have this bright shining light that's just this little dot on the map in Bethlehem. It's not all Bethlehem, it's this one area of Bethlehem. And so that is the picture that's there, is that we know something about Boaz. One thing we know about Boaz is that he is one who blesses others and receives blessing from them. So he is an inheritor of Abraham. Because wasn't that part of the covenant, right? That those who bless you will be blessed by me, and those who curse you will be cursed by me. And so he is entering into that covenant, and he's receiving that covenant where he is a blessing to others, and they bless him. well. So we have that picture of who he is. Along with being a family member, he is this one who is a blessing to others and blesses others. Receives blessing from the Lord. So Boaz then says to the young man who was in charge of the reapers, whose young man is this? So he's a man who's actually aware of what's happening in his field also. The young man in charge of the reapers replied, she is the young Moabite woman who returned with Naomi from the fields of Moab. And that sentence tells you something. That man, that young man, expects Boaz to know who he's talking about. Which means that word is traveled around town. Which isn't hard to believe. I mean, if you live in a small town, word travels fast. Especially a small town where everybody knows each other and half of them are related to each other. Right? Word travels fast. So it is that we know this is the young Moabite woman who returned with Naomi from the fields of Moab, and that paints all the picture that Boaz needs to know who he's talking, who she is. And the man in charge of the reapers goes on, and she said, please let me glean and gather after the reapers among the sheaves. Thus she came and has remained from the morning until now. She has been sitting in the house for a little while. And so the idea is that she started early morning with us. She asked if she could glean. We're like, have at it, go for it. And she's been working all morning. So she's been a hard worker. And right now she's taking a rest in the house. So that's where you can go find her if you want to talk to her. And so we get actually a little picture of Ruth then also. Ruth is somebody who has this initiative and this work ethic. What you might call a Puritan work ethic, where she's gone out to go help provide for herself and for Naomi. And she didn't kind of sit back and just take a little bit. She's been working hard at this. She's been right there with the reapers, working at it. He goes on. Boaz then goes and has a conversation with Ruth. Have you not heard, my daughter? Do not go to glean another field. Furthermore, do not go on from this one, but stay here with my young women. Let your eyes be on the field which they reap, and go after them. Indeed, I have commanded the young men not to touch you, and if you are thirsty, go to the water jar and drink from what the young men draw. And so here, Boaz is being more than generous. The requirement of the law was that you would let sojourners and widows and orphans and such, and the poor and afflicted and needy, glean the fields. And the idea is that you would go through one time through your field and pick what you could. Anything that fell to the ground, you don't bend down and pick up, you just leave it there. You don't glean all the way to the edge of the field, so the very edge of the field were left with items there. And all of that was so that then those who did not have means of supporting themselves could work and get what they needed. So it's not like a government handout program like we're used to here. It's one where you do the work and you can at least eat. It's not a lot. Gleaning didn't get you a lot of food. It got you enough to get you by. But notice what he does. He's generous with her. He first of all tells her to stay there. You'll be provided for here. Stay in this field. More than that, stay with men and women. You'll be protected there. You'll be with them. You'll be among them. So you become part of that community. She's invited in to be part of the community. Go after and follow them. They'll tell you what you need to do. And then this last part where he protects her. I've commanded the young men not to touch you. You have my protection here. Nothing will happen to you. You are safe. And then, more than that, you're equal to the rest of us. Go drink with the men or what the men collaborate. It's like you work for me. You're part of the team. You don't have to go find your own water. You don't have to go draw it draw it from the well for yourself. Now, when they draw it up, it's for you, just like it is for any other worker. So he's treating her as if she's part of them. He's brought her into community with him. And that's an amazing thing because she's a Moabitess. that shouldn't be, that's not how it should look, right? But except for she's already stopped being Moabitess. She rejected being Moabite. She rejected the God. She's taken on coming underneath Yahweh as her God and Naomi as her people. And Boaz recognizes this and says, yes, you are part of our people. And so she's accepted him fully. And so she realizes how amazing this is. This is not like it should be. And so she falls on her face, bowing to the ground, and says to him, why have I found favor in your sight that you should take notice of me, though I am a foreigner? So she realizes, this is not normal. I should just be getting the scraps off the edges of the field. I should be treated as a foreigner. I shouldn't be getting to get water with them or be around your young women. I should be like a loner over in the corner, just kind of following along, reaping, gleaning off of what was left from the gleaners. That's how she would understand this to be, but no. Instead, generosity is being poured upon her. And Boaz replies and tells us how much Boaz knows about what's been happening. Boaz replied to her, all that you have done for your mother-in-law after the death of your husband has been fully told to me. And how you forsook your father and your mother and the land of your birth, and came to a people that you did not previously know. May Yahweh fully repay your work, and may your wages be full from Yahweh, the God of Israel, under whose wings you have come to seek refuge. And so you see that he has a full understanding of what's happening. He understands the import of it. She rejected everything. She has nothing left, and has come to just seek refuge among this people. And so he actually prays a blessing upon her. May Yahweh fully repay your work, and may your wages be full from Yahweh, the God of Israel. So it's this blessing upon the work that she's doing. And then there's this last little bit at the end. Who is Yahweh? Yes, you came to be part of Israel, part of people, part of Naomi's family, but who did you really come to be under? Under whose wings you have come to seek refuge? It's Yahweh that you came under. It's He who is the one who is going to care for you. You've come underneath His care being here. And so she says, may I find favor in your eyes, my Lord, for you have comforted me indeed and spoken to the heart of your servant woman, that I'm not like one of your servant women. So what she's saying is that all of her worries have been dispelled. As she went out that day, she didn't know she was going to find somewhere where she could glean. But now she knows there's a place where she's going to get enough food to take care of her and Naomi. She didn't know she was going to go somewhere where it was going to be safe for her to be. But here she's found protection. She didn't know if she was going to be outcast and just left to grab these corners of the fields by herself. Instead, she has been joined in the community. And so all of her fears and worries have actually been dispelled in this conversation. As Boaz has reached out to her and been generous with her, not just in providing for her to have a place to get food, but also the protection and the community and the care that's there. And the recognition that she actually is part of the community. She's under Yahweh's wings. And so the scene continues on. In the mealtime, Boaz said to her, come here that you may eat of the bread and dip of your piece of bread in the vinegar. So she sat beside the reapers. He served her roasted grain, and she ate and was satisfied and had some left. And for us, it's like, okay, cool, she gets to sit at the picnic table. No, this is a big deal. She's a Moabitess, and she's sitting there with the reapers. She's a foreigner that's there, and she's being treated as if she is part of the reapers. She is fully brought in now as they sit around the table and eat. And, she's supposed to just be gleaning and then taking it home and figuring it out. And here instead, she's being fed on the job. Being blessed upon blessing. And so she's invited to be part of this whole community eating together. And it's really interesting where it says she sat beside the reapers, and notice what happened. He served her roasted grain. Boaz himself takes the roasted grains there and makes sure that nobody is going to doubt her ability to be there. By his doing this, he is making a statement before everybody else there. She belongs at this table. She belongs within our community. And so as he serves her that, he may not serve everyone else might just grab their own, but he is making sure everybody sees, no, she belongs at this table, she's one of us. There's a great signification for everybody to understand and know. And then notice, she ate and was satisfied and had some left. Wait, you're just a foreigner, why are you getting a doggy bag? That's not how that works. You're not supposed to be eating with them, and here they're giving you something to take home. Well, guess what Boaz is doing? Who's going to eat that when she gets home? Boaz is providing for Naomi through this as well. And so he is recognizing how to care for them as two widows. And then she rose up to glean, and Boaz commanded the young men, saying, let her glean even among the sheaves and do not dishonor her. In other words, don't rebuke her, don't say anything. You know what, if she's in the wrong place, just let her just pull right off of the stalks. Take anything. And he goes further though. Also, you shall purposely pull out for her some grain from the bundles and leave it that she may glean, and do not rebuke her. So as they're gleaning and working, they're purposely leaving a trail behind them. And say, hey Ruth, you missed some right here. Come get this one. Oh, real quick, there's a little bit over here that we missed. Can you get that one also? And so, through this, Boaz is caring for both of these widows, even to a greater extent. How much so? Verse 17, so she gleaned in the field until evening, so she worked a full day's work. She worked her tail off. Don't miss that. She wasn't given this. She had to still work, and she's going to still keep working. She gleans in the field till evening, then she beat out what she gleaned. So she goes then, does what everyone else has to do, and beat out all the grain, so that then she can take it home. So she's working hard for this. And notice it's about an ephah of barley. There's a whole bunch of discussion about what an ephah here means. The word itself is not exactly the same as ephah like used in Exodus, talking about different things. So there's argument about it. Basically, the best I can tell you is, how many of you ever delivered newspapers? And I did that when I was a kid, and I did it to, probably about 100 customers. So I had this bag on me that had 50 here and 50 in the back. So, and those other shoulders. It's a 12-year-old, not that strong, but by putting it on the shoulders, that sort of thing, you can carry that. And I would then go walk around the neighborhood and deliver the newspaper. And that's the picture that I have of this, because that's one of the things they do is they wrap it in garment or cloth or whatever, and sling it over and have it sort of some in the front, some in the back. So that's a visual picture. If you ever delivered papers or saw newspaper boys that have the double-sided sack, it'd be something like that, which means that she could carry quite a bit with that. She didn't have to be super strong because it's going on her frame, and so she could carry quite a bit. So an ephah would be anywhere between 50 and 75 pounds. That's a lot of grain.
Wow.
Yeah, that's not normal for gleaning, by the way. When you glean, you get a few pockets full. This is enough to last them for a couple of months, probably. For two widows, right? How much do they eat? So this is far above and beyond. And that's important to understand, is that she had about an ephah of barley, which also meant that she had to work hard to clear that stuff up, to beat it out. That's a lot of barley to beat out as well. So she's been working hard. But she took it up and went to the city, and her mother-in-law saw what she had gleaned. She also took it out and gave Naomi what she had left after she was satisfied. That's how you want the leftover already pre-roasted grain. So they don't have to make dinner that night. They've already got it pre-provided. Her mother-in-law then said to her, "Where did you glean today and where did you work?" She knows this is not normal. This is not how this works. May he who took notice of you be blessed. And so Ruth told her mother-in-law with whom she had worked, and said, the name of the man with whom I work today is Boaz. Naomi said to her daughter-in-law, may he be blessed of Yahweh, who has not forsaken his loving kindness to the living and to the dead. And so that's talking about Boaz. Boaz, she knows is a relative, and he's not forgotten the responsibility to care for the widows of his own family. He's not neglecting that at all. Instead, he's providing above and beyond. He's not forsaking his loving kindness to the living or to the dead. And so that tells us something else about Boaz. He's a man that loving kindness has said that covenantal love. He, by being a family member, is in covenant with other family members, and he's fulfilling that covenant in a loving, caring, kind way. And so Naomi continues. Naomi said to her, the man is our relative. He is one of our kinsman redeemers. We'll get into kinsman redeemers later, but kinsman means he's related, and redeemer has something to do with being able to redeem or rescue or save. So already, without knowing anything else, we didn't have to know that. We already knew he was a kinsman, but he already is acting as a redeemer. Why? Because he is rescuing these two widows from starvation and death. He is providing for them above and beyond generously. He's providing protection. He is truly being this, even though we might not know what the term means to begin with, but we know how he's acting. Ruth the Moabitess said, furthermore, he said to me, you should stay close to my young men until they have finished all my harvest. Naomi said to Ruth, her daughter-in-law, it is good, my daughter, that you go out with his young women, so that others do not oppress you in another field. So she stayed close by the young women of Boaz in order to glean until the end of the barley harvest and the wheat harvest. She lived with her mother-in-law. And so what we get is that she was there. Barley harvest would be April, May time period, and then the wheat harvest comes in late May, going into June. In that place, obviously not here. We have snow in May, so you don't have any harvest in May. But they're planting early because once you get to the summer, you get scorching heat, and that kills the crops. So that's the picture that we have of what's been happening for her. And with it, there is this great hope that now is there. They're being provided for. They're being protected. There's been one who has stepped forward to be there for them. And so some things that we just pull out of this, that in the context of the time of Judges, you have Naomi, Ruth, and Boaz. Their character stands out in contrast to what we see. Naomi, we saw in chapter 1, was a woman of persevering faith and sorrow. And she obviously had been a faithful woman to share the truth about Yahweh, so that Ruth and Orpah knew about Yahweh. So she was a faithful woman in her own household, even with these daughters-in-law of her. Ruth, she has this active faith in common life. She is doing the common thing. She's getting up in the morning. She's not sulking. She's not like, man, this is not good. We're in a bad place right now. We don't have food. We have a place to stay just because of the family home, but that's going to just be destroyed soon enough. So what can we do? There's two widows. Now she gets up. She puts herself to work. She does the simple thing. She takes the next step. And God's providence then is displayed through her next step. How does she know what to do? Well, they need to eat. That's how she knew what to do. And then she figured out what to do, which is go glean like the others do. Get up, go do it, go do the work. And so she establishes that. She has this decisive obedience that's there. And she also has to care for others because she puts Naomi before herself. We saw that she's diligent in her work. And she's a humble woman. She's not in any way trying to put herself upon others. She's humbly coming before. She's requesting, may I please glean here? She's being pushed into places that she's not necessarily comfortable with, knowing that it's not how society normally works. And we have Boaz, who is declared the excellent man. You see it with the way that he blesses others and is blessed by others, that give and take that that tells us a lot about a man, how others treat the man tells us a lot about a man, right? He's generous, he's protective, he's kind, and then he fulfills the redeemer role of the family, though he actually knows, we'll find out in chapter 3, he knows that he's actually not the kinsman redeemer. There's somebody closer. But he's acting as if he's the redeemer at this point. He is there for these widows. And he doesn't expect any benefit of it. He's doing this to care for these widows over there. The other thing we see is that a godly workplace is described. It's a surprise in Ruth. When we see it, we can pull it out and say, that's what, if you're going to have a good workplace, that's what the best one should look like. And we have this resting faith in everybody just doing what the next thing is. These are just normal people living out normal lives. There's nothing super about them. They are just regular people trying to live. And they're just doing the next thing. And they're doing it in faithfulness, resting in God. Like, okay, I don't know what's next, but I gotta trust you. And so some things for us to pull out of this. God's direction leading are found in obedience to what is known. We don't have to go and check the tea leaves. We don't have to do some magic incantation to get God's will. We don't have to do what Gideon did and throw out a fleece. Do that. How do you know what to do? Well, we have a whole book that tells us what to do. If you get this all figured out, you'll be in good shape already. So you won't have to worry about whatever else. But Paul puts it this way. Therefore I exhort you, brethren, by the mercies of God, to present your bodies as a sacrifice, living holy and pleasing to God, which is your spiritual service and worship. So you start by, we present ourselves to the Lord first and foremost, as living sacrifices. I'm dead to myself and alive to Christ. And stop being conformed to the world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, so that you may approve what the will of God is, that which is good and pleasing and perfect. Want to know what the next thing is? Next thing is to stop being conformed to the world, and instead allow yourself to be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And we're told that renewing of the mind occurs as we are in the Word. The Word does that work of renewing our mind. We saw that last week when we looked at Colossians 3. Whether you eat or drink, whatever you do all with the Word of God. Right? Second thing is that godly fulfillment of the created differences in the sexes are displayed. Naomi, Ruth, and Boaz. All three display their faith, yet they do so in line with who God created them to be as women or as man. And that's important in our culture. Our culture is confused. Our culture will say, well, what does it mean to be a godly man? And they'll give the fruit of the Spirit. What does it mean to be a godly woman? Give the fruit of the Spirit. Well, I agree that those are aspects of being godly, no matter whether you're male or female. But that doesn't solve the man versus woman aspect. And there are ways that God has created men, there's ways that God has created women. There are differences. And those differences are not minor little things, those differences are key, and they're displayed here in Ruth. You see Boaz protecting and providing. And his dogged holding to the covenant that he has within his family. He'll do whatever it takes to fulfill that. And you have Ruth and Naomi who show this strength of faith as they walk through in service of one another, love one another. We'll see more of the feminine side as we go through. Right now we've seen them mostly just surviving, but as you go through the book of Ruth, you see these two put in display. You see the display of the feminine, the display of the masculine, that God made them different. And our culture needs to know that. Our churches need to know that. A lot of the churches have forgotten that there's differences. They just kind of think that, well, it's just defined by godliness. Well, but there's godly men and godly women, and they're different. And we need to uphold that, and Ruth does. There are seemingly random happenings of life that are actually the divine appointments of our sovereign God. That she just happened to come upon that field. Well, to her, it just happened. God had appointed it for her long before. But God had appointed it for her in such a way that He had appointed for her husband to die. He had appointed for Elimelech and Naomi to move their family to Moab so that Ruth would be married to one of their sons. He had appointed, if you want to go further back, He had appointed for Lot and his daughters to have sexual relations that ended up in the nation of Moab and Ammon. Or without that, there is no Ruth. He had appointed for the slavery of Israel in Egypt for all those years, so that they would come just the right time and be in that place at just the right time. All these things, his hands are on everything. Nothing is random because God is a God of order and of purpose. Left you some verses there that you can look at that remind you that God is in control of every aspect and knows the beginning from the end. Finally, Boaz is a type of the true Redeemer, Jesus. Jesus provides for us and protects us. He sets His love and care upon us while we were still estranged from Him. There in Ephesians chapter 2, we were dead in our trespasses and sins. But God, who is rich in mercy because of His great love which He loved us, He made us alive in Christ while we were still dead in our sins. For by grace you've been saved. And so, Boaz is a human example, but we know the far better Redeemer, Jesus. And so, this man that's the white hat in the story, in the ways that he's the white hat in the story, it only points to the one who truly is our hero and our Savior, Jesus. The one we cling to, the one we run to, we hold to, and trust. And so, as we continue on in Ruth, we want to hold on to these truths, and mostly keep on seeing that God is doing all this on purpose. That's true for us as well, that God, whatever circumstances are in our lives, God has His hands and fingerprints on it. We can rest, and we can do as Ruth and Naomi and Boaz, just do the next thing that's in obedience to Him. The next thing that's going to honor Him in your life. That's what we're called to. We're not called to figure it all out. We're called to do the next thing. And in that, trust Him because His hands are all over you. And He will not forsake us. So I'm going to ask Brian to go ahead and come on forward as we close our time singing from 2 Timothy chapter 1. This idea that we know who we believe so we can trust these things to Him. That's what we're going to do, is trust everything to Him. Father, as we close our time, we're thankful that we see how You care about the details of just common everyday people's lives. If You hadn't put these people in Your Word, they would have just passed off the pages of history without anybody knowing about them. It was by Your perfect plan that You placed this account of Ruth and Boaz into Your scriptures for us. They could have just been a name and a lineage, like so many others are. But instead, they are examples to us of godliness and faith. They're reminders to us of Your faithfulness in dark times and hard places. They refresh us that You are there with us in everything. It's all of us. So we rest in You. So this week, may that be the flavor that we walk through this life with. That whatever comes up, that we would obey with a heart of love and gratitude. That we would do that next thing of obedience to You, whether it be going to work, or whether it be doing dishes at home, or whether it be giving a hug to our kids or a family member, or sitting down and listening to a neighbor who's just struggling, or telling the truth to a coworker. Whatever it is, Lord, we do that next thing to honor You. We do that next thing that You may glorify Yourself in us. So we thank You, Lord, for these examples to us. We thank You that we don't just do this on our own. It's Your Spirit working in us, where You empower us and make us to be more like Your Son, Jesus. So So we thank you. May we be glorified in your church this week as we live as such lights.